Hi, I'm Steven again, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to animate a bouncing ball, which is pretty much one of those classic animation exercises that lots of beginning animators will accomplish, and it's something that you really don't want to forget because sometimes when you're animating characters you're going to be using the same kind of concept. A couple things that I'm going to do. First, I'm going to start with an oval, and if you hold down the Shift key you can constrain that to the same height and width. If you don't, then you're going to be making an oval, but if you hold down Shift, it's going to constrain it. So I'm going to stay with that. If I double click it, I can go over here and change the stroke and the fill if I want. I can give it a different design, but I can always worry about that later. So right now the stroke is, I don't really need one, but I'm going to give it a little bit of emphasis. Eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little design the ball because I want to see it rotating eventually, but I'm going to get it started here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this layer. And then I'm going to create another layer, and I'm going to make this a ground layer. All right, and in the ground layer what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a rectangle, and I'm just going to give it, I want to give it a little bit of a different color, and I don't want it to have, so let's make it kind of a brownish color, brown green. So I don't need to make sure that these lines right here, these solid lines, are the edges of the canvas or the stage or the scene, whatever you want to call it. Here in Adobe Animate, they refer to it in a couple different ways. I usually call it the scene because when you make a new one, it's called scene. But in Adobe Animate, it does reference it as the stage. If you press this little button right here, if you click this clip content, that's going to show you what the eventual movie is going to look like, right? So just to kind of point that out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. I need to convert it to a symbol. Now I can do that in one of two ways. When I create it as an animation, it's going to convert it naturally, and I'll show you that. The other way is you could right click and you can go down to convert to symbol, and then it'll convert it to a symbol. But I'm going to go through the steps of not doing that first, right? So there's a couple different ways to work. I'm going to go down here towards the end, and I'm going to go down to 150, and I'm going to right click. I'm selecting across both of these layers, the frames on both of these layers, because I want both layers to end at 150. If I put one layer ending at 70 and one layer at 150, whatever stopped at 70 wouldn't be there until frame 150. So I'm going to select across both of these, right click and insert frame. Again, if I don't do that, this one winds up, down here. The end of this is down here, then it's going to end there and it won't be seen. So just to kind of remember that if I don't duplicate that, and if let's say I insert a frame here, and I look at that, you see the ground disappears. That's because that frame span ends there, right? So I'm going to undo. Right, so I have a ground, I have my ball. So I'm going to go back to frame 1, and I'm going to position this ball. I can get rid, if I want to, I can kind of get rid of this outline. I think it'll be kind of distracting to have that there, that stroke around that shape. So I'm going to double click the stroke around this object, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to press delete. So that'll get rid of the stroke around that object because it just doesn't need to be there. I don't need it there. I just want it to kind of look like a ground. And I'm going to modify this just a little bit. I'm going to bring the stroke size down just a little bit. And I'm actually going to bring that in a little bit. I think that the ball is a little bit too big. I think I'm going to go about that size. All right, so this is my full stage or my full scene, and I want that kind of look like this ball is not kind of overwhelming in the scene. If you make it too big, it's not going to bounce very well because it's going to be really large in the scene. If you make it too small, then it's not going to look right in this big scene, having this small ball bouncing, right? So I'm going to position the ball kind of right around where I'd kind of want it to start. And the idea here is that it's going to bounce and then bounce and then bounce and bounce, right? So it's like the ball is being released and bouncing onto the ground. And I want to make sure things are moving in arcs, right? But the first thing I want to do is kind of show you how to do this kind of quick up and down animation, and then I'm going to add the side to side, kind of help out a little bit. There's a lot of different ways you can approach this bouncing ball and how you can animate it in Adobe Animate, but I'm going to take this method. And actually I just realized I have an extra a blank keyframe right there, and I'm just going to remove that. And then I'm going to just insert frame. I don't want a blank keyframe there because it's a whole new frame span when you have that. So if I entered a blank, or if I entered a keyframe, right, that's a whole new frame span, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to remove that, right? But I need to now, I've got the ground, I've got the ball. I need to convert the ball because the ball is going to be moving, the ground is not. I'm going to convert this to a motion tween, right? And then what it's going to do is you're going to see a warning that the selected object cannot be tweened. You must convert it to a symbol in order to be tweened. Now, do you want to convert it? Yes, I do, because that's exactly what I want it to do. I want it to be now a symbol. So whatever was in that layer has now been converted to a symbol, and that layer has been converted to a motion tween. Right, and if I deselect, if I click off of that, you're going to see it's yellow. When it's selected, if I hold down Shift and select that, you're going to see it kind of turns to this sort of teal green color, right? So just so you know, when that's selected, I'm selecting the whole tween span. So I'm going to go to the very beginning. That's where it's kind of set up. I'm then going to go down, let's say I go down to frame 25, and I'm going to just drag the ball straight down. And you'll see this sort of slightly blue line. I'm going to make that a little bit, I'm going to make that stand out a little bit better because right now this teal color right here is the color that that line's going to be. So I'm going to make it stand out a little bit more by changing it. But I want you to see that that's kind of traveling down, right? So I'm going to double click on just the icon, and you're going to see this layer property thing come up, right? And this is the properties for that particular layer. So right now it's a normal layer, it's visible, and here's the outline color. And if I change that outline color, I'm going to make it like a red color so you can kind of see it stand out a little bit more. So now that's, whenever I do some animation, other than just rotation, if I move it, you're going to actually see this trail. This is sort of the path of action that the ball is going to take, right? So right now it's just going up and down. So I'm going to then take it over here. Let's say I go to frame 50, which is probably not going to be the right timing. I'm going to have to fix that, but I'm going to bring the ball up a little bit. But I'm not going to bring it back up to its height because you're always sort of losing energy, right? So if you think about that, when it bounces down, it bounces back up, it's not going to be going to the same height. Think about the laws of physics where it's, when you bounce it, it's not traveling up as high. It's going to diminish in energy every time, and it's exponential, what they call it. So right now I have the ball just kind of bouncing up and down. So I'm going to show you something here. If you double click on the Tween Span, as you probably had seen earlier, if you've been following other videos, you're going to see that the y-axis has movement on it, right? So right now this is location, X is left and right, Y is up and down. So right now I don't have anything on the X, or I shouldn't. Maybe a little bit of movement, but not very much. But the Y, I have movement, right? So I'm going to travel down here. I'm going to go to, say, 75. And then I'm going to bring, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Option. I'm going to select this one key, hold down Option, and then click and drag it over to 75 so it duplicates where the ground is. And by the way, I'm not trying to, just to kind of see this, when I create a ground like this, I'm not looking at the ground like it's, this is the ground level and this is below ground. This is seeing it in perspective, right? So when I have the ball hit here, I'm not having it hit like that, right? If you do that, it's going to not look like it's really hitting the ground. You could try to get it as close as possible, but get it somewhere where it's going into the ground a little bit. Because when you do that, it's going to look like it's hitting in perspective. It's not like it's hitting, you know, like you're seeing exactly from the side of this ground. And then again, like I said, this is below the ground, this is the top of the ground. It's really the kind of the idea here is that this is, you're seeing this ground in perspective, right? If I were to be standing and looking at this ball bouncing, I'd be looking at the ground this way, right? Anyway, so, and I can adjust these later if I want to, and I probably will. So I'm going to option drag that one back. And then I don't really want to option drag this one here. I could, and then what I could do is just sort of bring it down a little bit because I want it to lose energy every time. And then I'm going to go forward and I'm going to grab this one again, option drag that one, I'll put it to 125. I'm just kind of doing by the numbers. I'm going to tweak this and adjust these sort of, I'm going to tweak and adjust where these are hitting and sort of the timing and adjust all these things later. And then I'm going to go here. And again, I'll just go to the end, and I'm probably going to be adding more frames after this, but I'm going to select that and then just sort of go up a little bit. And eventually I want that to come back down. And I'm probably going to move all these around based on that because, you know, I want the timing to change. But I'm just going to look at this right now. If you play, you're going to have this ball bouncing up and down. Does not look very realistic. Doesn't look like a ball's really hitting and bouncing on the ground. So what I'm going to do, if you were to stand here and drop the ball, you'd actually see it slowly pick up speed, and the fastest it's going to be going is right before it hits the ground, right? So I'm going to actually select that first point, and I'm going to hold down Option, and I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to drag, and you're going to see that handle appear, right? And what that's going to do it again, is it's going to, this is the slow in and slow out. It's actually the slow into the movement, right? So it's going slow whenever the line, this animation curve is going flat, it's slow. Whenever it picks up, it's picking up speed. So again, this is value and this is time. So you're seeing not a lot of change in value over this time, and then all of a sudden the value starts to change a lot more over a smaller length of time. So when it hits the ground, this is when it hits the ground, it's actually going to be the fastest it's going. Boom, right? So I don't want slow in and slow out here. I can put some handles and add like maybe a little bit more speed as it hits the ground. But what's happening is when it hits the ground, it's going the fastest it will during its time of travel. Because it's not slowing itself down. It's not like a character that's slowing itself down and anticipating the ground. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that again, hold down Option, drag out another handle to get one on the other side. Then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to Option drag. Again, click once, Option drag out a handle, click again, hold down Option, drag out a handle, and then when they are 180 degrees apart, they're going to do this, they're going to be locked together, right? So you're going to see that they're locked together. If I hold down Option and select one of them, I can break the handles a little bit. Sometimes I do that depending on what the action is. But this is reaching the height and then coming back down. So I want it to slow as it reaches the top and then slowly return back to Earth, right? And then I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm going to stop with that for right now, just kind of show you how that's working, right? So that's kind of the idea with this, is that I'm getting it to go across. Now the other thing that I want to do, this is just illustrating, I want you to kind of see this, that this isn't the path of action, even though it might look like it's a sort of the path of action a bouncing ball would take if it's upside down, but this is not. It's just going up and down, right? So this is it slowing, it's speeding up until it hits the ground, right? It's just going up and down. Then as it's coming back up, and we're going to be changing a lot of this before we're done. I'll have a second video where I kind of add more polish to it, but it hits the ground and then it bounces back up with velocity, right? It's going fast. And then as it reaches the top, it's going slow again. And then it's picking up speed as it goes back down, right? So that's kind of the idea. Boom, boom, right? So that's what I'm going to do for that right now, just so you can see that. The other thing that you want to check out is on the x-axis, you already have these points that are kind of going across. Now, one thing that I could do when I do this ball bounce is I could actually not just do it up and down and then move it. You could start that way. You could have it bounce and then move and bounce and move. You can just keep repositioning it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to where the ball is hitting the ground, and I'm going to bring it over a little bit. Right, so you can see that path of action right here is causing the ball to hit the ground about right there. That's that path of action. And now when you look at this on the x-axis, you're going to notice that it kind of returns, it goes back this direction. And you can see this path of action leads here, and then it's going to go back here, which isn't correct. We don't want it to do that, right? But if we play it right now, you're going to see that it bounces and then goes back. We don't want to see that. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to drag it over, right? Then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to drag it. I'm going to drag it over here, and I'm going to adjust these later. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to bring it over here, right? go over here, bring it over here because it's on the ground, and I'm going to have to fix a lot of this. And then I'm going to come over here, and then I'm going to, it's like still in the air, so it's going to bounce out. Things don't look right yet, but I'm going to fix these. And it added some extra points. So I'm just going to select those points, and I'm going to press delete. I don't need all those extra points. Right? So I'm going to go click that one. There we go. All right. So I'm going to bring this about right there. So that's the first time it hits the ground. Oh, oops. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to bring that up a little bit. Right. And then I'm going to fix those up. So this one needs to be over here. And I can actually grab these and bring this up if I want to. One thing, if these aren't positioning for you correctly, I'm going to right click and go down to motion path and switch keys to non-roving. So what that'll allow me to do is I can select these keys and move them around, right? And you're going to see that it coordinates with up here, right? So I'm going to go here. I'm going to delete that one. All right. So I'm going to move that up a little bit. So I'm just going to position it. I'm going to try to get this to go around up here. Select that. I'm going to move it over here. Go to this one. Should be on the ground. And then this one should be in the air. This one should be on the ground. And I'm going to fix all these. And then that one should be in the air. And then that one should be on the ground. Now I should have this zigzag, and I have this one that I'm going to have to delete. So I'm going to select that key, press delete. Let me go on the Y, and it should have deleted the same one. These are always, they always try to keep with one another. So if I move this key, you're going to see both of them move, right? So then it's in the air, and then I can move that over, kind of position it where it's halfway, and then go to this one, and then I'm going to bring this over just a little bit, bring it down, go to this one, it's on the ground, right? And I'll kind of fix those up later. Go to this one, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit more, and then go to that one, right? And so this first one I'm going to have to fix. I put the slow and slow out, but I'm going to have to fix that, right? So I'm going to go to the Y, and again, I have these handles here, so I'm going to hold down Option, I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag that handle so that this line is going down. If this handle's on this side, you're going to see it's going to slow it down a little bit. If it's on this side of that animation curve, you're going to see that it's increasing in speed when it hits the ground. So I'm going to grab this other little handle, and I'm going to drag it this way. Again, I'm going to keep it on this side of the animation curve, because again, if it's on this side, it's slowing to start, right? And since it just stopped hitting the ground, it hit the ground, it's bouncing back up, I want it to have some velocity. Then when it gets up in the air, again, I'm going to drag another handle out. So sometimes they get removed, right? So I can move that point around, or I can come up in here, right? And you'll notice that this curve, when you have the selection tool on, I'm on the selection tool, you'll notice that I can select that curve and I can drag it around, right? So I can reposition where these are all happening. But the other thing that you can do, if you go to the sub-selection tool, I can select that point, which is where the keyframe is. Right now, the ball is at this keyframe, but I'm selecting the one here, and it's got little handles too, and I can hold down Option and I can drag out these handles. Right? Whoop. And this one has a handle, and this one has a handle. So I can actually grab them there and change this slow in, slow out, just like these handles here. And if I go to the very beginning, you'll notice there's a point there. It's got a handle. I can drag it out, and I can modify the path of action. And at the same time, it's modifying the slow in and slow out down here. So you can do this either way. I find that sometimes this is a little bit easier to kind of get it working. So I'm going to select this point. I can adjust this handle. Don't pull it way like this, because it still wants some forward velocity while it hits the ground. right? If I go this too far, it's like going back, right? But I'm going to keep that at least kind of up straight, and I can bring this in and modify that. So this one, I'm going to have a little bit of a different angle coming up here. It'll have slow in, slow out up here. I go down to this one. I again select it, hold down Option, and drag out a handle, and it'll do that. And then I just hold down Option, grab this other handle, select it again. There it is. I'll hold down Option, hover over this handle, and then drag it up. It's breaking what they call breaking the tangents. Right, so I can break the tangent because when it hits the ground, I again want it to come down with velocity and leave with velocity. This is where I want slow in and slow out. This is more like fast in, fast out, which isn't an actual term, but it's kind of helpful. So I can just drag these handles out. Whoop. See, if I hold down Option and drag the handle, it's going to break the tangents. But if I don't hold down Option and drag the handles, I'm going to keep them locked. Right? I'm going to grab this one, hold down Option, drag up a handle, still holding Option, grab that handle, and drag it up. Right, and now that it's getting kind of this lower bounce size, I'm going to, let me get these to hook back in. It's not going to be bouncing as much here, so and I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to Option drag, get that handle so it looks right. Option. All right, so I can adjust this, bring it down if I want. I should probably bring this down because I don't want it to be too much of an arc because it's really losing a lot of energy at this point. Right, grab this one, bring that down a little bit. Right, so, and then I'm just going to have it kind of bouncing out of the scene. And I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. Bring this one in just a little bit, right? So, diminishing in energy, and it's bouncing and doing slow in, slow out. So now when I play it, the only problem is when you see these down here, right, that looks like it's got energy, but these don't, right? And the reason why is because I need to go here and tweak these handles a little bit. Whoop, that one not so much, right? So the other thing that's happening, and I need to adjust some of the timing here, is I need these to, and I need that handle to be back. Again, this is, when I'm looking at the Y, this is just the up and down. It might kind of look like this, but it's not. Like this is just going up and down, right? So I have it going faster at first and then slower as it moves along. Ding, ding. And it doesn't need to be slower by much, so I might want to adjust this a little bit more. Bring this one over, bring this one over. Right, so there should be, each bounce should be a little bit longer, but not by much. Bring that one over, and now I'm going to bring this one over. Right, so now let's look at that. So I get a little bit better timing. It's probably a little bit too much spacing from here to here. So I'm going to bring this to 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so it's sort of equal. I just have the height of the ball about equal between the two, right? And I'm going to grab this handle right there, bring this one a little bit closer, bring this one a little bit closer, right? I kind of want this one to be, this middle point to be about halfway between here and here, those two keys. That key should be about halfway. Okay, we're going to be modifying this a lot, but that kind of gets us started with a bouncing ball, right? So I need to pop over to the x-axis. Now here's what's happening here. When it hits the ground, right, I don't want slow in and slow out when it's hitting the ground, right? So what I need it to do when it hits the ground is it kind of needs to stick. It can't keep moving from side to side. So this needs to be flat. The tangent handles here need to be flat in this area, right? So when it does that, it's not moving left to right. Same thing here. I'm going to just pull that handle down. Make sure that these are just flat. These just go in the direction when the ball's at its height. These points, these tangents, need to be faced in the direction it's going. They're going to be there, so you need to kind of adjust them. So then this one, I need to make sure that one is flat. When it's in the air, those tangents are going the direction of, it's maintaining the speed. Right, then I'm going to go to this one, this point, and I'm going to flatten these handles out just a little bit. And then this next point, look at these tangent handles, bring them in a little bit. Just make sure it's going the same direction. And then this one needs to be flat, right? So then you're going to notice, boom, 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 boom. Right, the speed of this last one I'm a little concerned about. I think this is going a little too slow. So eventually I'm going to be adding more bounce because I want this to go all the way to frame 150. That's kind of the target I've set to myself. So what I can do is I can actually select across here, right click, remove these frames. Can do the same thing. I'm going to leave that because I'm going to adjust that. And actually right click, remove frame. And then I'm just going to drag this from the end and it's going to scale it up. I'm going to scale it to 150. And now I've got a timing for 150. Oh, and did something weird on that one. So I'm going to shift click on this. I'm going to right click and remove frames. And then I'm just going to go down here and right click and insert frame because I don't want these to be two different spans. You notice that ground was split up. Just did it by mistake, right? So that kind of gets us started on the bouncing ball. It gives us some slow in and slow out. I kind of adjusted the timing a little bit. I can fix it up. So if I don't like that, I can bring these handles down a little bit. Again, when I select these, if they're broken, I have to hold down Option. And I'm going to select this one, hold down Option, right? So it sort of tapers that out a little bit. I can drag this here, or I can come up here and select these handles and drag them out a little bit. So either way you want to work. Both are very good ways to work and will work for you. So it depends on what you're comfortable with and what you like, or how you like working. So I'm going to adjust that a little bit. The only thing is I don't want this to go further and then come back. So you see these handles right here. I need to kind of pull these this way because I don't want it. I want it to be coming at this trajectory and then it stops. Right, the same thing here. This handle needs to be about right here. I'm going to move this away so I don't select it accidentally. And then get that. So then I should have a pretty good looking ball bounce. I have not added what they call squash and stretch, and I'll talk about that in the next video. But now when I play it, you're going to have a nice ball bounce. I could probably change the timing a little bit. This does not feel very weighty to me, right? But I have it bouncing once, twice, 3 times, and a 4th out of the scene as it kind of drifts out of the scene. And I probably want to adjust that height of that a little bit. But it kind of gets us started on a ball bounce. And in the second video, I'm going to add a couple more elements and do some polish.